Hello friends, in this video we are going to solve the general aptitude session of GATE BT 2021. So it's really important for any competitive examination preparation to solve the previous year question paper. Especially in the case of general aptitude, if you solve the questions, you will definitely be able to solve questions during your examinations. So without any further ado, let's get into solving the questions. So first question, the ratio of boys to girls in a class is 7 to 3. So boys is to girls is 7 is to 3. Now, among the options below, an acceptable value for the total number of students in the classes. So we have to find out the number of students in the class that will give us a ratio of boys to girl 7 to 3. So from that we'll get the fraction of boys is 7 by 7 plus 3, that is 7 by 10. Okay, so we have to check which of these numbers will give us this fraction. So let's try with the first option. A, 21 into 7 by 10 is 147 by 10, that is 14.7. So is that possible? We'll have a 14.7 boys in a class? That's not possible because we need a whole number for the number of students in the class. So let's try with the next number. Again, this will give us a decimal number and this is also not possible, right? So moving on to the next number, 50 into 7 by 10, that gives us 35. So we are getting a total number 35. So let's see if that is applicable with the ratio of 7 is to 3 in case of boys is to girls in the class. So if we take 35 boys in the class, the number of girls would be 50 minus 35, that is 15. Let's see if this 35 boys and 15 girls gives us the ratio. So 35 by 15 dividing both by 5 gives us 7 by 3. So that's giving us the ratio. So what would be the answer here? 50 would be the answer. So let's move on to the next question. Hope you understood. Moving on to the next question. A polygon is convex if for every pair of the point P and Q, and so the points could be any points P and Q belonging to the polygon, the line segment PQ lies completely inside or on the polygon. So the PQ line should lie either inside the polygon or on the surface of the polygon. So let's check about. So let's take our square. So we are considering our square here. So square is not the answer. Okay. So in the square, if we check P and Q, we are considering this P and Q. So it's lying on the surface. So it's following the criteria or the condition given in the question. And if we consider here also, this is lying in the surface. Here also it's lying in the surface. And if we consider P and Q to be opposite poles, opposite points, so the PQ line is lying inside the polygon. So that's the condition given here. So it is being followed. So the answer is not C. Let's move on to our next figure. That's the triangle. So there also, if you take P, Q and P, so any of the PQ lies on the surface. So it's also following. Okay, so moving on to the next figure, that's our trapezium. So we can take P here, Q here. So PQ can lay in any of the surface. Okay, and if we take the opposite poles to be PQ, it's lying inside, so it's following the condition given in the question. Let's see about the option A. So in the option A, our figure is like this. So here If we draw P here and Q here, of course it's lying inside, so it's following the condition. But we are taking P here and Q here. So here it is not inside the polygon or not forming on the surface of the polygon. So this is the answer here. So this is not a convex polygon. So answer A is the correct option. Moving on to next question. Okay. Consider the following sentence. Everybody in the class is prepared for the exam. Second sentence. Babu invited Dhanish to his home because he enjoys playing chess. So, the first sentence, everybody is in the class is prepared for the exam. It is grammatically correct, right? And Babu invited Dhanish to his home because he enjoys playing chess. Has nothing to do with the exam, right? And it's not giving any sense. So what happens? It is ambiguous. If the second sentence would have given some clear idea about something or something to do with the exam, it should be unambiguous. But here it has nothing to do with the exam and it's not giving any clear idea. So we can choose the option C. Okay. Because the first option is grammatically correct and the second sentence is ambiguous. It's not giving any clear idea about what's going to happen. Moving on to next question. So here, a circular sheet of paper is folded along the lines in the direction shown. So you can see here it is folded first to the left and then to the upward after being punched in the final folded state. So in the final folded state it's being punched as shown and unfolded in the reverse order of the folding. How will it look like? Okay, so we have to see how it is going to be looking like. So we have to check how it is going to be. So we have to check how it will turn out when we unfold in the reverse order. So when we will unfold, how it will look? The longer rectangle will be here. The same will happen because we had folded on to the topwards, and in the center we will have a circle and here we'll have a smaller rectangle. So which is the option in that? Option A. So these are pretty easy questions. So moving on to next question. So the fifth question. Dash is to surgery as writer is to dash. So let's look into the options. Plan is to surgery? No. Writer is to outline? Of course not. Hospital is to surgery. Writer is to library? No. That's also not possible because surgery happens in the hospital but writer does not happen in the library, right? If it was a book, it could have, or the writer was replaced by library and is to book was given, then it would be right. Now moving on to doctor is to surgery. Yeah, doctor carry out surgery and writer is to book. So writer writes a book, right? So that's their profession or what they are doing is represented there. So the option, which option would be correct? Option C. Moving on to next question. C. Moving on to next question. C. Moving on to next question. So this is a 2 marks question. Sixth question. We have two rectangular sheets of paper M and N and with dimension 6 cm into 1 cm each. So we have two papers 6 centimeter in length and 1 centimeter in breadth. We have two such rectangles. Okay, and this sheet M is rolled. This is our M and this is our N. Okay, so the M is rolled to form an open cylinder. We are making an open cylinder by bringing the shorter edges of the sheet together. The shorter edge is the 1 centimeter edge. So we are making a cylinder with the shorter edge being the height and the longer edge being the perimeter of the circle that is formed at the base. So this is the base, and we know that the perimeter of that circle would be 6 centimeter. That's the longer side of the sheet. So we can write what's the equation for perimeter of the cylinder. 2 pi r is equal to 6. That's what we are getting here. So we will get the radius of that cylinder 6 by 2 pi. That is nothing but 3 by pi. Now let's look into the second. Let's look into the second sheet. So in the case of second sheet, what's happening? The sheet N is cut into equal square patches and assembled to form a largest possible closed cube. So largest possible closed cube can have a 1 centimeter side length, right? So we can get 6 such pieces from here with 1 centimeter breadth or 1 centimeter side length for the square. So such 6 pieces we will get, and we are making a cube out of that. So this is the cube with one side 1 centimeter. One side is 1 centimeter. So what's the question? Assuming the ends of the cylinder are closed and the ratio of the volume of the cylinder to the ratio of the volume, we have to find the ratio of volume of the cylinder to that of the cube. So we have to find the volume of the cylinder. Volume of cylinder to volume of cube. So what's the equation of volume of the cylinder? 2 pi r square h divided by the volume of the cube is a cube. So here we know that the radius we had already found out, that is 3 by pi. Here we got that. So we are substituting that here into 3 by pi the whole square into what's the height? H, that smaller side of the rectangle. So we had already represented it is 1 centimeter. This height would be 1 centimeter. So in 1 divided by the side of the cube is 1 centimeter. So 1 cube. What does we get? 9 pi into 9 by pi square into 1. So 1 is not required. So pi got cancelled. 9 by pi is our answer. So what's the answer here? 9 by pi. The C, option C is the answer. The seventh question, we have got a table there. So it's representing items, cost, profit and marked price. So the name of the two items have been given, P and Q. The cost of P is given, the profit of Q is given, and the marked price for P and Q has been given. Details of prices of two items P and Q are presented in the above table. The ratio of cost of items P to cost of item Q is 3:4. So they have given the cost. So cost of P by cost of Q is 3/4. Okay, so always writing down the things that are given in the questions will definitely help you solve the question. Okay, discount is calculated as the difference between the marked price and the selling price. So discount is marked price minus selling price. Okay, the difference between mark price and the selling price. So anyhow, like selling price minus mark price, or mark price, sorry, so this is the correct form. So discount will be always, the selling price will be always less than a mark price, then only we will get discount, right? Okay, so that's the equation there. And the profit percentage is calculated as the ratio of the difference between selling price and cost. Okay, so what is profit percentage? Okay, so the profit percentage is calculated as given below, the ratio of the difference between selling price and the cost to the cost. Okay, so profit percentage equation is given here. Profit percentage is selling price minus cost divided by cost into 100. So what's the question now? The discount on item Q as percentage of its marked price is. Okay, so we have to find the discount percentage of Q as the percentage of its marked price. So what will be the equation there? What will be the formula, or how, what will be the equation there? So discount percentage would definitely be the difference between marked price and the selling price of Q, right? We already said that the discount can be calculated by the difference between marked price and selling price. So we have to get the discount percentage of Q with respect to the marked price of Q. So marked price of Q minus selling price of Q divided by marked price of Q into 100 is the discount percentage. Okay, but now we can just substitute all the values here, but do we have all that values? Let's just check. So we have only the profit percentage of Q is given. $25, and we had already known that the cost of P is to Q is P by Q, CP by CQ is 3 by 4. So from here we could calculate the cost, right? So 3 by 4 is, the cost of P is 4500 by X. So from here we will get X, that is the cost of Q. So that is 45400 into 4 divided by 3. So what's that? 1 and 24 is 800 into 4. So 18 into 4 is 7200 is the cost of Q. So we got the cost of Q. Now what do we need? Okay, so here we got the cost of Q. We need the marked price of Q is also known. We need the selling price of Q. So how can we get the selling price? There comes this equation of profit percentage. Okay, so the profit percentage of Q, we know that profit percentage of Q is 25. So 25 is equal to selling price of Q minus cost of Q. We already know 7200 divided by 7200 into 100. So from here we could solve the value for, we could find the value for selling price SPQ is equal to 25 into 7200 so, or else we can do this thing. Here we can just cancel out the 0 from 172. So into 25 into 72 plus 7200. That is equal to, so 72 into 100 by 4, that we can do 7200 by 4 plus 7200. So 4 goes 1 times, remaining 3, 32, 8 times, 00 plus 7200, that gives us 01900. That is our selling price. So we got the selling price as well. Now we have to calculate the discount of Q. So Q discount percentage is, we already said the equation is Q marked price minus Q selling price by Q marked price into 100. Therefore, Q marked price is 10,000 minus Q selling price, we just calculated 9,000, divided by Q marked price into 100. So can cancel out 00 here and 1000 divided by 100, that gives us 10 percentage. So the option C would be our answer. I hope you understood the question. Okay. Moving on to next question. So there are 5 bags each containing identical sets of 10 distinct chocolate. One chocolate is picked from each bag. The probability that at least 2 chocolates are identical is. So in this question, we have to understand the question properly. So we have to find out the probability that at least 2 chocolates are identical. That means at least 2 chocolates means we can have at least 2 chocolates or 3 chocolates or 4 chocolates or 5 chocolates being identical when we choose from each of these 5 bags. So what does this question actually say is that we are having 5 bags and 5 bags, and each bag is containing 10 different chocolates, and that sequence is followed in all the 5 bags. Okay, so and we have to find out the probability that at least 2 chocolates are identical when we draw 1 chocolate each from these bags. So what would be the easiest way to find that? First of all, it's easy to find the way that no two chocolates are identical. The probability that no two chocolates are identical. How can we find that? The first bag we are choosing chocolates. Okay, we are having 10 choices. In the second bag, we are having 9 choices. Why? Because we have already selected one chocolate from that, and we don't want to have a identical chocolate like that. And in the third, we are having 8 choices from which we can choose a distinct chocolate. And in the fourth one, 7, and in the fifth one, 6. So we can just say that the probability of not getting any chocolate identical is equal to 10 into 9 into 8 into 7 into 6 by the total number of choices or total number of possibilities by which we can choose chocolates. That is 10 from the first, 10 choices in second, 10 choices in third, 10 choices in fourth, and 10 choices in the fifth one. So from that we'll get the probability of not getting at least 2 chocolates are identical, or getting distinct chocolate from these 5 bags. So that means get 9 into 8, 72 into 42 by 4 zeros. Okay, 10,000. So that is equal to, we get 3024. So multiplying this, we will get 3024 divided by 10,000. That is 0.3024. On seeing this, there is this option given, but we should not get confused. So this is the probability of getting no 2 chocolates are identical. So how can we get at least 2 chocolates identical? So all the things that are left other than this probability would be at the probability that at least 2 chocolates are identical. So what does that mean? 1 minus the probability that we just found out. That is 1 minus 0.3024. That is minus 3024. That is 6. 9 minus 2, 7. 9 minus 0 is 9, and 9 minus 3 is 6. So we do have that option, the option number. So the option C is the correct answer. Okay, moving on to next question. Given below are 2 statements 1 and 2, and 2 conclusion 1 and 2 are given. Okay, so let's read this carefully. Statement 1 is all bacteria are microorganisms. Statement 2, all pathogens are microorganisms. Okay, so all bacteria are microorganisms. How can we draw a Venn diagram out of this? All bacteria, this is all bacteria, okay, are microorganisms. Okay. Now we are saying that all pathogens are also microorganisms. So from that it's given that some pathogens are bacteria. Conclusion is some pathogens are bacteria. According to our question, the conclusion given are some pathogens are bacteria. Okay, we know in reality we know that some pathogens are bacteria, but from the given statement, is it possible to say that some pathogens are bacteria? Because look here, in the Venn diagrams that we created, there is a possibility that the pathogens are here. This portion is pathogen, the leftover portion is pathogen, or maybe it overlaps with this. Okay, so some pathogens may be bacteria and some pathogens may not be bacteria. So the first conclusion, we cannot say that it follows from the given statements. And the second conclusion, all pathogens are not bacteria. Okay, so considering these two Venn diagrams, all pathogens may be bacteria. Okay, all pathogens are not bacteria. We cannot actually say that all pathogens are not bacteria. They may be bacteria, they may not be bacteria. So from the given statements, neither of the conclusions, neither conclusion 1 or 2 is correct. We in these kind of questions we should not apply our thinking or our understanding of the subject. We just have to think based on the given statements. So according to the given statements, all bacteria are microorganism. Okay, fine. All pathogens are microorganism. From that, can we say some pathogens are bacteria? No. And all pathogens are not bacteria. Is it possible to conclude that from the given statements? No. So the correct answer would be neither conclusion 1 nor conclusion 2 is correct. Moving on to next question. Some people suggest, so the 10th and final question of this 2021 GATE Biotechnology paper, some people suggest anti-obesity measures such as displaying calorific information in the restaurant menus. Such measures sidestep addressing the core problem that causes obesity, poverty and income inequality. Which one of the following statements summarizes the passage? So just go through all the options and we can find out what is the answer. So we have to understand what is given in the passage. So the first option is the proposed anti-obesity measures address the core problem that causes obesity. So it specifically says that the measure that is taken by the restaurant authorities. So the measure that is taken by the restaurant authorities, such as displaying the calorific information in the restaurant menus, are sidestepping the core problem, that is our poverty and income inequality. So is the AOM addressing the core problem? Of course not. Okay, so the first option is wrong. If obesity reduces, poverty will naturally reduce since obesity causes poverty. It's totally not logical. So if obesity reduces, poverty will naturally reduce, and since obesity causes poverty, it has nothing to do with the given passage, so it is cancelled. Now the third option, anti-obesity measures are addressing the core problem and are likely to succeed. So it's basically saying that these measures are sidestepping the core problems such as poverty and income inequality. So that also does not summarizes the passage. Now, anti-obesity measures are addressing the problem superficially. Isn't that so? Because they are representing the calorific information to reduce obesity. While why is this obesity happening? Because somebody is having higher income and some people are having poverty, right? So it is addressing the problem superficially. It's not actually working on that particular problem. So the option D would be correct. So that's it. Hope this video was helpful for you and thanks for watching.